Hello and welcome to my review of Amazing Spider-Man number 41, an issue that is written by Nick Spencer with art by Ryan Ottley. From the cover there, you see it's True Companions Part 1, but you also see that it is a Boomerang issue.
Okay, Boomer.
And I love Boomerang. I think that Boomerang's hilarious in this book. I love the idea that as Fred, his normal identity, he is Peter's roommate as well, and awful, always wearing Peter's underwear and then leaving it in the sink. But you're getting back to something with Boomerang that we haven't had in a little bit, and it's kind of spelled out right away in the recap page where Nick Spencer is admitting there's a lot of things going on in this book. And yes, one of the biggest things, and I think one of the biggest complaints that people would have is Kindred in the background, the big bad, the big thing that he has been revealing. You want more of that. You want that to be resolved. Let's see what's going on. And yeah, so I think that some people might be a little upset when you go back or do something with a Boomerang, but you've had so many other things involved. Kraven and Kraven's son, Chameleon. You end up having Vermin even mentioned here because it comes into play right away. You have Kingpin, Mayor Fisk, stuff like that. And also like J. Jonah Jameson having a podcast, things like that. And it's fun. I like the stuff that we get. It's just the idea that you do want to have the big things resolved, like a Kindred. And then when you go to a Boomerang story, some people might be thrown off. I'm not, because I love Boomerang.
Okay, Boomer.
And so you start off, though, in the sewers with a bunch of vermin. And this does lead and really is from the whole hunted thing with Kraven. And there is a little bit of an explanation of how we got all these vermin, how they were cloned by Arcade, things like that as we go. It doesn't really matter too much at this point. You have a bookend deal with the sewers and the vermin, but it does show you that Boomerang's there. And Boomerang just loves being with Spider-Man. He thinks that Spider-Man is the best.
Are you an angel?
Yeah, I think he thinks he's an angel. And it's kind of a Deadpool-esque type thing where Deadpool always wants to team up with people, and when he does, the person who is the hero with him always will deny the team up. And it's kind of like this. You have the idea where Spider-Man in his mind, I'll never get used to this, and Boomerang yelling, I could get used to this. It's funny, though. I like the back and forth with it, but because, like I said, you end up having a Boomerang who we haven't seen in a little. You're going to have recap. Now, there's some recap that I don't mind, some that gets a little tiresome. This recap is more of, hey, this is how Boomerang ended up in this series. And if you've read the series, you know this, but it's always going to be somebody's first issue. So you do have recap. You find out that Boomerang, being a Spider-Man villain, it was odd when Fred, who is Boomerang, shows up and becomes Peter Parker's roommate, but it has led to a lot of funny things with that. And then since then, it's even led to a lot of fun trouble for Spider-Man as well, as former teammates, former villains that were kind of aligned with Boomerang. Always, everybody has a problem with Boomerang. Come back to do all this nonsense, especially the Syndicate, which was pretty funny when they came back to seek revenge on Boomerang, who needs to get woke. It is what he needs to do. And so when you have this, though, the big thing in the background is Mayor Fisk. Why is Fisk after Boomerang? What does Boomerang have that Fisk wants? Because it's been hinted at, it's been played around with, but we haven't known. And finally, Spider-Man needs to know, why is Fisk after you? Now, this leads into more recap, but recap in the way of stuff that we haven't seen in this series, stuff that led into this. I don't mind this because it does go back to show you how Boomerang became a hero after Secret Empire, where he ended up fighting the whole deal with Hydra, and like a lot of villains who ended up becoming heroes in that seem to have been pardoned, seem to be looked like as a great guy now, which is right in the wheelhouse of Boomerang. That's all he wants. He wants to be loved. It's great, though, as he calls his fans boomers and says,
Okay, Boomer.
Yeah, it's so great. Okay, boomers, he yells to all his fans. He's being interviewed. People are there. Everybody wants to get next to Boomerang. And an old guy comes and says, I have something that I need your help with. I need you to help me because I have an artifact. It's priceless, but if it gets in the wrong hands, it'll be the worst thing ever. Boomerang here is priceless, and off they go. And they go to this guy's office, and this guy just ends up, his quote-unquote secret lair is the basement office of a municipal building where he is cataloging all of the crazy artifacts that end up, mystical artifacts, treasures, that end up making their way to New York, where it ends up, say, the Fantastic Four is fighting somebody, and they end up dropping a amulet or, something like that. It's scooped up and then given to this guy to catalog. They have it all there. It seems to be one of the reasons why Fisk wanted to become mayor in the first place, so that he can get a hold of these. When he finds out about these, he's going to get a hold. But there's one thing in particular. There is one artifact in particular, and that is the Lifeline tablet, something that Spider-Man is very, very familiar with in a bunch of stories. And this is pretty much an artifact that will make you the all-powerful god. We do find out later why Fisk would want this. It's not just the idea that he wants to be the most powerful thing in the universe. It's a little more personal for him, but we see all the different times that this Lifeline tablet had come and affected Peter, had done things, including my favorite, Hammerhead, turning into an ultra-powerful light being. But you see that it ended with Doctor Strange, like he usually does, zapping it off into another dimension. But the fragments have returned. The fragments have returned, and they're scattered across New York City, it seems. And you end up having this guy make a map. He ended up making a map, but he didn't want to put it on paper. He has some clues. You end up having Fisk has assembled, the greatest minds of the world trying to figure out where these things are, where all of these fragments are. He's having a lot of problems, obviously, because he's going after Boomerang. Well, what's up with Boomerang? Well, he ends up being the map himself. This guy ends up using a spell that Doctor Strange taught him, in a little bit of a force deal there, but ends up zapping the map, the thing inside of Boomerang himself. But he doesn't quite know everything all the time. He ends up getting these visions of where the next piece will be, and he just wants to end up teaming up with Spider-Man. And Spider-Man even says, this is something that gives you unlimited power, the thing that sparks 16 gang wars, and he entrusts it to you. It seems to be just a matter of circumstance where this guy was desperate, he needed somebody, and you had a ticker tape parade for the big hero, Boomerang. Boomerang's like, I'm shocked as much as you. We do see, though, that Fisk is desperately trying to figure out where these things are. He's assembled all of these different people, scientists of all different types, archaeologists, cryptographers, cryptographers, I guess that would be, right? Code breakers, and they can't figure it out. And he's really pissed. He does send one guy off to pretty much be killed. But in the meantime, Spider-Man and Boomerang have made a deal. They're going to go and they're going to find these fragments. When these visions come and pop in Fred's head, you're going to end up having them go off. And I really think they should fist bump with all this coronavirus stuff going on. But yeah, so when they're out and about, all of a sudden, Fred gets a vision. You see it with that kind of crypto type thing around him. It's almost like a Spidey sense, but it's the Lifeline tablet sense. He gets that. He says to Peter, hey, call up your man Spider-Man and go. And just as an aside, Peter knows that Fred's Boomerang. Boomerang does not know that Peter is Spider-Man. So he goes and calls Spider-Man, and they go in, like 2015, they go geocaching, something that my family got into and I thought was nonsense. But they end up there finding the pieces, and Spider-Man's having fun. He's enjoying this. He's enjoying Boomerang's company here. He's having fun finding these things different places. And that's kind of what led them, or did lead them, into the sewers there, being attacked by vermin. And they're trying to figure out, why are all these vermin attacking us? We have to get through them to get to a piece where it says where the piece is. So they're trying to get to this. In the meantime, this is where we see the background again, a recap of why Fisk would want this tablet. And it's to bring back his dear Vanessa. That's all it is. It's more of an idea of personal deal of a love lost than just controlling the universe, the world, or even New York City. And with all the things going on and Fisk desperately trying to find this, they finally end up, one of his scientists finally finds a way, or at least some information, that points to something different than what they thought. And pretty much what they ended up thinking was how the tablet came back. They find out that it came back in a different way than they thought. But in the meantime, you still have the vermin attacking Spider-Man and Boomerang, like he does, always has some crazy boomerang that he's going to use. He says the Soparang is what he's going to use. And as he says this, the vermin end up kind of stopping and running away. Or, of course, Boomerang thinks that that is from him and his Soparang, like the threat of the Soparang did that. But you end up where Fisk is excited because he sees something else brought this tablet here. I don't really get the connection of why that would matter right now, unless you end up where Fisk can figure out where or what you can do to get it by what brought it back. But that's where Spidey ends up getting the spider sense big time. There's a rumble. Yeah, the vermin all leave. And you end up seeing that it is being protected by a giant monster there. So they're going to have to get through that. But again, I don't know why Fisk and the connection of that would be so, make him so happy. But it must be something that it's a clue to how he can get these pieces, or at least, go maybe the backdoor route of doing it. And I did like this issue. I love Boomerang. I said that before. And when you have Boomerang...
Okay, Boomer.
And that's the last time I'll do that. But when Boomerang's in the issue, there's always fun to be had. And I like fun. And being a guy who hadn't really read Spider-Man until we started doing our Marvel podcast, this is the type of thing that I like a lot. I like the Spider-Man having fun. Now, yeah, you're going back to a Boomerang story that maybe some people want the Kindred more, or maybe even people like me even really enjoyed seeing J. Jonah Jameson having the whole podcast, but it's fun. And this is kind of the thing that you're getting from this book are these fun stories and then the big thing, and then more fun stories and the big thing. So I can't really criticize it too much, even though my man Brandon on the podcast, he won't even read this book because he thinks this is Nick Spencer's MO and it drives him nuts. But overall, with the art, Ryan Ottley's art is really good. I like his look of the Spider-Man stuff in this book. I love his Boomerang. I love everything about his art, actually. And because of that, I'm going to give it an 8.5 overall. Again, if you're more somebody, I need something more hard-hitting, I need something with the Kindred, I need this, then your score may go down. But I actually have been enjoying The Amazing Spider-Man lately, and that's that. So I hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please like it. And also, it would be great if you'd subscribe to our channel. And if you look in the description of this video and all the other videos we have on this channel, you can see all sorts of links to everything else Weird Science, our podcasts that are DC and Marvel, our site, DC and Marvel, there's kind of a trend there, and a bunch of other things that you can go and check out, like our Twitter, Instagram, things like that. But I hope that you all enjoyed this, and I hope that you do subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you later.